My neighbor, Barry, always thought he was hot stuff. Big, loud, obnoxious, the kind of guy who peaked in high school and never realized it. He ran a landscaping business, or rather, he claimed to run a landscaping business. Most of the time, he was just loudmouthing his way through the neighborhood, offering unsolicited advice on lawns and hedges. And let me tell you, his own lawn was an absolute disaster. Dandelions thrived, crabgrass reigned supreme, and his sad excuse for a rose bush looked like it was auditioning for a role in a post-apocalyptic movie. My yard, on the other hand, was my pride and joy. I spent hours cultivating it, nurturing every blade of grass, pruning every leaf. It was a sanctuary, a little patch of green heaven in a suburban wasteland. I wasn't a professional like Barry, but I took immense pride in my work. The trouble started with the fence. We shared a rickety old wooden fence that had seen better days. I'd offered to split the cost of replacing it several times, but Barry always brushed me off, saying he was too busy. Too busy drinking beer and yelling at his kids, probably. Then came the dogs. Barry got 2 hulking Rottweilers, supposedly to protect his property. More like to terrorize the neighborhood. They were constantly barking, snapping at the fence, and generally making my life miserable. I complained to Barry, of course, but he just laughed it off, telling me to man up, and that they were just being playful. Playful? They looked like they wanted to eat me for breakfast. One Saturday morning, I was meticulously edging my lawn when disaster struck. Barry, in his infinite wisdom, decided to trim the weeds along the fence line. With a weed whacker. A weed whacker that he wielded with the grace and precision of a drunken gorilla. I watched in horror as he systematically shredded my prize-winning hostas, sending bits of green shrapnel flying everywhere. My blood pressure spiked. I could feel a vein throbbing in my forehead. Barry, I yelled, trying to keep my voice from cracking. What in the hell are you doing? He stopped, smirked, and said, just cleaning up a bit, pal. You know, taking care of those pesky weeds. He gestured vaguely towards my ravaged hostas. Pesky weeds? Those were award-winning hostas. I had nurtured them for years. The red mist descended. I tried to remain calm. Barry, those weren't weeds. Those were my hostas. You just destroyed them. He shrugged. They looked like weeds to me. Besides, you should have kept them off my property line. That was it. That was the final straw. Years of Barry's arrogance, his noise, his general inconsiderateness, it all came crashing down on me in that moment. I saw red. I told him, through gritted teeth, that he would be paying for those hostas. He just laughed and went back to his weed-whacking massacre. That's when Operation Backyard Blitzkrieg was born. The next morning, I woke up early. I had a plan. A meticulously crafted plan designed to inflict maximum annoyance on Barry without technically breaking any laws. Or, at least, without getting caught breaking any laws. First, I knew Barry hated waking up early, so I began my gardening at precisely 6 a.m. I fired up my ancient, incredibly loud lawnmower, the kind that sounded like a sputtering tank, and proceeded to mow every inch of my lawn, multiple times. I made sure to get extra close to the fence, letting the mower blades kick up dust and debris onto Barry's side. Next, I strategically placed several industrial-sized wind chimes along the fence line. Not the delicate, tinkling kind, but the ones that sound like a blacksmith's forge during a hurricane. The slightest breeze set them off, creating a cacophony that could rival a heavy metal concert. Then came the sprinklers. I adjusted them so that they would arc over the fence, soaking Barry's lawn, and occasionally, his car, at random intervals throughout the day. I made sure to use the highest pressure setting possible. But the pièce de résistance was the compost. I'd been diligently collecting kitchen scraps and yard waste for months, and now it was time to unleash its full potential. I built a massive compost pile right next to the fence, ensuring that the prevailing winds would carry its pungent aroma directly into Barry's backyard. Think rotting vegetables, decaying leaves, and a hint of eau de dead fish. For the next week, I maintained my routine with military precision. The lawnmower at dawn, the wind chimes all day long, the errant sprinkler showers, and the ever-growing compost pile. I even started playing polka music on my outdoor speakers at a moderate volume. Barry hated polka music. At first, Barry tried to ignore it. I could see him glaring at me from his window, his face a mask of barely suppressed rage. But as the days wore on, the cracks started to show. He started yelling at me, threatening to call the police, the homeowners association, even the FBI. I just smiled sweetly and waved. Good morning, Barry. Isn't it a lovely day for gardening? One afternoon, I was pruning my rose bushes with an electric chainsaw when Barry finally snapped. He stormed over to the fence, his face redder than a tomato, and started screaming. I can't take it anymore, he yelled. This has got to stop. You're driving me crazy. I feigned innocence. Driving you crazy? I'm just taking care of my yard, Barry. Just like you told me to man up about those dogs. He sputtered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Then, in a moment of pure, unadulterated rage, he grabbed a baseball bat from his garage and started smashing the fence. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I calmly pulled out my phone and started recording. Having a little trouble there, Barry? Perhaps you should call a professional. Oh wait, you are a professional landscaper. He swung the bat again, splintering another section of the fence. You're going to regret this, he snarled. Regret what, Barry? Regretting that you're destroying your own property? I'm just documenting the situation for insurance purposes, of course. He threw down the bat, defeated. Fine, I'll replace the whole damn fence. Just stop this torture. I smiled. I'm glad we could come to an agreement. And while you're at it, maybe you could do something about those Rottweilers? They're starting to give me nightmares. Barry just stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and bewilderment. Then, he turned and stomped back into his house. A few weeks later, a professional fencing company installed a brand new, 6-foot-tall privacy fence between our properties. It was beautiful, and best of all, it blocked out Barry. The dogs were still a problem, but I planted a thick hedge on my side of the fence that mostly muffled their barking. And the wind chimes? They mysteriously disappeared one night, replaced by the sweet sound of silence. And the best part? Barry never mentioned my hostess again. In fact, he seemed to avoid me altogether. He even started taking better care of his own lawn, probably afraid of what I might do next. Operation Backyard Blitzkrieg was a resounding success. And all it cost me was a little time, a lot of patience, and a whole lot of compost. I even won Yard of the Month at the end of the summer. I may not be a professional landscaper, but I know how to cultivate revenge. And sometimes, that's even more satisfying than a perfectly manicured lawn.